This is a short little introduction to percent word problems. So many things in real life are communicated in terms of percents, and most real life uses for math are like word problems. Rarely are you ever presented with a math problem in real life where it's just numbers to compute with. Real life use of math is always like a word problem. Now here's an example. When you sell a house, the real estate agent usually gets 6% of the cost. Well, how much is 6%? Well, that depends on how much the house costs. You'll see things on sale for some percent of the original price. So we're going to look at some different kinds of uses for percents in the real world and how you get information if you know how to think about percents and work with percent math problems. This is the basic mathematical form of all percent problems. There are three parts to any percent statement: the percent, the whole, and what the percent is of the whole. Like, for example, 10% of 80 is 8, where 10 is the percent, 80 is the whole, and 8 is the part of the whole. So you have to remember how to compute a percent. You turn the percent into a decimal, and then you multiply by the whole to get the part. So any one of these three numbers can be missing in these word problems that we're going to do. So you need to know how to solve for any one of those missing numbers. So we're going to review that. Now, what word problems are in math is what real life is like, where you know some things and then you have to figure other things out from what you know. In the percent word problems, you know two of the numbers and you have to figure out the third. And it could be any one of the three. I use N, that capital N, to stand for the secret missing number. There's always a missing number. Now, sometimes the missing number is the answer, but sometimes it's just what you need to know to be able to figure out the answer. It's not the actual answer. So the first two here in these examples, for me, those are the harder of the three. But none of these are really hard. If the missing number is the whole, we set up the equation like the first one. 10% of what number is 8? Well, remember, if we know that two numbers multiply together to make 8, then 8 divided by the one we know would equal the other one. Because anytime you know two numbers multiply to make the third, that number that divided by the one you know is going to equal the other one. The next one is just like that. Only you know the whole, and you're going to divide by 8 to get the percent. And then you have to know to turn the percent into the decimal into a percent. The third here is the easiest because all you have to do is multiply. And for some reason, multiplying is just always easier than dividing. It shouldn't be if you have a calculator, but it seems like it's easier to think about. At least for me, maybe not for you. Now I'm going to give you some examples that will be like the kind of exercises that you're going to do. So here, this first sample, I have 60% of my math problems done. I have 12 problems done. How many math problems do I have altogether? Well, think about what's missing. Is the part missing, the percent, or the whole? Here, the whole is missing. So we're going to set up the equation the way you set it up when the whole is missing. 60%, we write that as 0.60, times n, the secret missing number, equals 12. So 60% of the whole, which is what's missing, is 12. So we know that 0.6, which is 60%, or 0.60, times the secret missing number is 12. So 12 divided by 0.60 is going to give us the answer. Now, I want to point something out here simply because I've seen something that bothers people, and sometimes I don't even know why it's bothering them, but I've seen it over and over in my decades of helping people with math and teaching them math. And that is, some people come to like just internalize their number sense, that when you divide, you get a smaller number. And they know, in their intuition tells them that the number of math problems has got to be bigger than 12, because 12 is 60% of the whole. If you've only done part of them, the whole is always more than the part. And so they get this like number sense that they shouldn't divide because they have a sense that dividing gives you a smaller answer. Well, dividing only gives you a smaller answer when you're just dealing with all whole numbers. And when we're dealing with decimals, division can give you a bigger number, which is what it's going to do in this case. But I just wanted to point that out because a lot of people just have this sense. And so I made this video that you can watch after you're done with this lesson to help you straighten out your number sense so you don't have the kind of anxiety that people often have when they start dividing to get a bigger number and things like that. So don't let that bother you. It's always true that when two numbers multiply together equal the third, you can divide to figure out what's the missing number. And in this case, it's going to give us a number that's bigger than 12 because we're dividing by a rational number, not a whole number. Caden made 26 of 40 free throws. What percent did he make? Well, here the percent is missing. So here the secret missing number is the percent. We have the whole, which is 40, and we have the part, which is 26. So we write n times 40 equals 26. And then, of course, we can divide 26 by 40 to get n, and that's 0.65. But we should probably write the answer as a percent. That is 65%. And here's the third kind. This is the easy kind. 20% of the kids like liver and onions for supper. There are 700 kids. How many like liver and onions? What's missing? The part of the whole is missing. Is the part of the whole. These are the easiest, at least for me, because you just multiply 20% times 700, and I can even do that one in my head. Usually I use a calculator, but I believe the answer is 140. Okay, pause this and then click on your Khan Academy link. Make sure you're logged into your Khan account and do the first set. There'll be problems just like this, where one of the three numbers is missing in a percent problem. You have to figure out which one's missing and then set it up. Now, if you get stuck, you can watch the videos in Khan, which will be a little bit different than these explanations. So sometimes something different is a good thing. Or they have hints, or you can come back and watch this. Though don't move on until after you've mastered those. Then after you have mastered those in Khan, is you can do them over. If you miss them, go ahead and finish and see how many you got right, and then try them again, but don't just try again without looking at something first. Look at one of the videos or look at the hints and think about it, and then try them again. When you have mastered them, then come back and watch the rest of this video, because it will tell you how to do the more trickier, complicated problems. Welcome back. This is going to be the second half, and this is more like what real life is like, because real life is not quite as simple as you've got all but one piece of information and you just have to compute to figure it out. In real life, there's always a lot of extra information, and you have to figure out what information is the part I need to figure out this problem. So sometimes they give you information that you don't need in a percent word problem so that it's more like real life. They don't do it to throw you off. They do it because that's how real life is, and that helps you learn how to use percents in real life. So read this problem. The bakery has 50 cupcakes for sale. 8 are vanilla, 24 are chocolate, and 18 are strawberry. What percent are strawberry? Well, you have to use a little bit more of your brain to do this kind of problem than the kind we were doing before, because you have to figure out which numbers are needed, because some of these numbers, we don't need them. The numbers that are needed are called the relevant information. The numbers that matter to solve this are called the relevant numbers. That is a problem-solving skill, figuring out what is relevant and what is not. So the relevant numbers here are 50, the whole number of cupcakes, and 18, the number that are strawberry. It doesn't matter how many are chocolate or vanilla, because we're only being asked to figure out what percent are strawberry. So the relevant numbers are 18 strawberry and 50 is the whole. So what percent of 50 equals 18? And then you can solve it. Just like the other problems that were simpler because they didn't have any information that we didn't need. And here, 18 divided by 50 will give us the answer, and that is 0.36. And we change it to a percent, 36%. And this is slightly more difficult just because there's a couple steps involved. The math isn't any harder, it's just the thinking to set it up has to be done a little bit more carefully. There are 20% more people than cookies. There are 60 people. How many cookies are there? No, the answer isn't not enough. We have to come up with a number. So, what's missing? The secret missing number is the number of cookies. How many cookies are there? Well, there's 20% more people than cookies. So the number of people is all of the cookies plus 20% more. So that would be 100% of the number of cookies plus 20% of that number, which is 120%. So 120% of the number of cookies is going to equal 60. And then to actually compute that math, you need to change it to a decimal, which is 1.20 times n equals 60. And as always, if we know that two numbers multiply together to equal the third, we can divide to get the answer. So n is 60 divided by 1.2. And that turns out to be 50. And then when the problems are complicated like this, it's a really good idea to think about whether it makes sense. So if we had 50 cookies and 60 people, we do have more people than cookies. And that is reassuring because we could tell from the question, we've got more people than cookies. Now, I just want to point something out here. In the review, when I was showing how do you solve the math part of problems like this, I wrote it as 1 plus 0.20. And I kind of prefer this myself, but it doesn't matter. That's the exact same thing as 100% n plus 20% n. So you can write it either way, and I just wanted to point that out so that if you see it this way, you'll know it's the same thing. So whichever makes it easier for you is how you should do it. Now go try the next set of the Khan Academy word problems. They're more complicated like this. And more complicated is actually more fun sometimes. You feel better about getting them right. And if you need to, watch the videos, click on the hints if you need to, and then go back and try them again and see until you really get it, until you feel like you really get it.